that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
A large, hairy creature with arms that hang down beside its, bore down on its sides.
She only happens. And I told him my name, and when I told him the name, he said he was called Code.
It was not anything from this earth that I'm quite sure of.
You're listening to the Strangeology podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Foran, and this is your place to explore the weird, strange, and unexplained. From cryptids and creatures, the paranormal, aliens and UFOs, forbidden knowledge, ancient mysteries, conspiracies, and more. All right, folks, welcome back to the show today. Before we get started, make sure to follow Strangeology on all of my socials for more content and sign up for our newsletter over on strangeology.com. Links will be in the show notes as always. And if you're watching this episode on my YouTube channel, definitely subscribe if you haven't yet. It helps out a ton when you do. Also, Strangeology is on Substack now, so make sure to check us out over there. We've got the podcast feed and more content, so definitely check that out. Now, alien disclosure is a topic that's been on a lot of our minds lately, with government hearings, new whistleblowers coming forward on a frequency that seems like every couple of months there's something new coming out. The gears seem to be turning towards the release of the truth, or at least some of it being potentially revealed soon. This whole disclosure movement. So today I've brought on a new guest. We have Stephen Bassett with us to chat all about what's going on with the world of disclosure. Now, if you're unfamiliar, I'll do a quick introduction here. Steve is a leading advocate for the disclosure of the extraterrestrial presence that seems to be engaging humanity. As the executive director of the Paradigm Research Group, a nonprofit dedicated to education, political activism, and post-disclosure analysis, he's spoken in over 20 countries around the world about the political implications of UAPs and disclosure. His work has been featured in several major outlets like CNN, Washington Post, New York Times, and many more. And he's conducted more than 1,500 media interviews, many of which can be found on YouTube and in numerous documentary films and series. In 2013, he organized the historic citizens' hearing on disclosure at the National Press Club and later launched a political initiative that brought the ET issue into the 2016 presidential campaign cycle. Most recently, in 2023, he co-founded the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, a media-focused initiative connecting UAP and ET researchers with creators in the entertainment industry, which that'll be really interesting to get into. Currently, though, the Paradigm Research Group's Shiftstorm project, which he's working on to advance comprehensive UAP hearings in Congress, is going on right now. So we're going to get into a lot of stuff. Really glad to have you on the show today, Steve. Thanks again for coming on. We were chatting before the show. So I'm curious about Paradigm Research Group. What inspired you to start this project, and what has this group accomplished so far? And just a quick follow-up to that, you're working a lot with advocating for getting congressional hearings going. If you could offer any updates for that, if there's anything new in the works. I know that's a multifaceted question.
Oh, there's a lot going on. We're in the end game, I like to say. I jumped into this issue in 1996. By volunteering to work for John Mack's organization in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where they were studying contactees, which was extraordinary because he was a highly regarded Pulitzer Prize-winning professor and psychiatrist associated with Harvard. Spent about 4 months there, and it was up there that I figured out what to do. I was going to engage the politics of this because that's the problem, not science, as far as I was concerned. And the way my door in, or the way I chose to go, was to register as a lobbyist. Pro bono for a number of groups, a number of organizations were out there that have no money. Nobody has any money in this field. And it's because I had registered for a number of organizations, I decided to call the entity that I was going to work under Paradigm Research Group. But it's not a research organization. It's an activist organization. I did a little bit of lobbying. It was just impossible back then, just a waste of time. But what I did was focus on the media. I really focused on the media, getting the issue, finding all kinds of ways to get stories in there and interview with media and generate articles. Forgive me. And it worked. I mean, I've generated, I've had about 600 articles on the subject, which referred to me, just me, but I've logged in 16,000 articles going back to the 40s on my website under the print media archive. That's paradigmresearchgroup.org. So I was engaging the media, lobbying the media, because you lobby the media, and if the media gets into it, it makes it easier for the politicians to get into it, but it's a slow process. And so then I did anything and everything to help advance what I came to call the disclosure process. That I think I came up with that around 2000, maybe 2001. And by disclosure process, I don't mean just small d disclosure process. That's been going on since 1947 when they put out the press release. But capital D disclosure, which is the term I have given to when we finally get confirmation from the president. That's a big deal. It's a whole different situation in terms of what's possible and what we're going to learn and what information we could get. So capital D disclosure is the goal, is the prize of what is eventually matured as an activist movement. It wasn't much of an activist movement prior to the early 1990s, but since then, it's become an activist movement of its own type. And so everything the Paradigm Research Group has done since then is to promote the activist movement getting to disclosure. So then essentially I became what I call a disclosure advocate. And I've done, everything I've done, whether it's 6X conferences that I held in the Washington area, whether it's the Citizen Hearing on Disclosure, generating articles, hundreds of articles during the Clinton campaign about her connection to the issue, things like that. Everything I've done is to try to help get disclosure. So that's what I do. And along the way, I've made many friends, many contacts. I know a lot of people in the field, both research and activism, and they're all working hard. Many have worked for decades, some 30, 40 years, and have recently we lost them. But this effort to get the truth from the American government on this is now in its 78th year, minimum, going back to Roswell. 78 years of lying to the American people about what is probably the most important piece of information that they could learn. And so that's about to end because there have been significant developments.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's, you're one of the people out there that have laid a lot of this groundwork for what we're seeing today, of course. And yeah, the going back to Roswell and potentially earlier, there's been clearly something going on that we've been lied to about. I'm also curious now, you've got this new project, the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. What's that all about?
Yeah, again, it's innovative activism. Hollywood publicist Dan Harari approached me at a conference back in 2023. 2023? Let me think now. Yeah, 2023. Do I get that right? I guess I did. Yeah. And he had this idea of creating an entity that would network people in the film industry with people in the UAP world, to put it simply. Right.
Gotcha.
I had done something similar in a very basic way back in 2011. I'm 12, 13, and I called it the ET Media Group, and people in the media world were invited to come and just chat once a month for a couple of hours, and it was great, and there was interest. The idea was try to get the people that really have the money and the resources in this town to make more than just alien movies, which they've made billions from,
right.
But actually engage this issue in documentary form and so forth. It lasted for a while, but 10 years later, Dan Harari comes forward basically with a much more appropriate, robust idea. And I said, absolutely. So we launched it on October 3 of 2023. And essentially, it is a nonprofit, 501c3. It's composed of two types of founding members. Film industry, content industry, we call it the Hollywood founding members, but Hollywood stands for the entire content creating industry, wherever it is. And UAP people, people that have been dealing with the UAP issue, the T issue, as researchers or activists, journalists, documentaries, whatever, but that's been their focus. That's the second group. So that they could find each other on this website and find each other not only in their own field, but also in the across to the other. So it's a pure networking nonprofit. Makes no money from any deals that are made, any films that are created, whatever projects. But it makes it easier for them to get together and also acknowledge their interest in the subject. We're now up to 205 members, split about evenly between Hollywood content creation people and UAP people, some of which have a foot in both camps. And deals are being done and good things are coming from that. It's going to continue to grow. So Hollywood Disclosure Alliance contributions, I assure you, are welcome. There is a donation page on the site. And if you go there, you can see what we're trying to do. It's pretty straightforward. It's the only site of its kind. It's certainly related to this issue. So that was a project that's still ongoing. But what's happening now, and why we're almost to disclosure, capital D, confirmation from the president, is the result of 7 years of effort by a lot of people of substantial rank and station, and not just regular citizens being activists like me. I'm just a poor caveman activist. But PhDs and people that have worked inside the government, intel, and everything else, which initially emerged in 2017, has resulted in the engagement of the issue by the Congress. Formal, robust engagement by the Congress in this issue, which had never happened before. 2 modest hearings back in the 60s. That was it. Now it's a thorough engagement of this issue. There have been 8, 9 hearings before various committees in the House and Senate. Some of these were gangbusters. I mean, they were significant hearings. Over the last 7 years, many scores. It's hard to know how many because many have only spoken privately with members of Congress and or staff, committee staff, so forth. But scores and scores of witnesses inside people that have worked or aware. They're inside and aware of this issue. And we think some firsthand witnesses that have dealt with the issue have come forward. There's been some testimony, of course, by some of these. There'll be more. There's another hearing coming. There has been 4 pieces of legislation passed. The first one was in the Defense Intelligence Authorization, the Intelligence Authorization Act. The other 3 were in the Defense Authorization Act. These are major pieces of legislation.
Yes.
The last one was so robust, they had to kind of pare it back. And it's been resubmitted, and it's going to get resubmitted again. And of course, you've had members of Congress speaking directly to the issue, going in front of the cameras, going on television news shows and saying, there's ETs here, or we're not alone, or there's non-human advanced technologies entities here, whatever. And there have been others, high-ranking people like Mitchell and many others that have done it. But we're talking about members of Congress doing this. And so the stigma is virtually gone. There is almost no stigma at all, except, well, where it matters, in journalism and in Washington. So we're practically there. And where we stand now is that I'm waiting for confirmation that Representative Anna Luna was able to speak with Luis Elizondo and Major David Grush in a skiff on the 1st. She said she was going to. She's indicated that she's going to hold a hearing in April, She is open to having the nuclear tampering witnesses, the nuclear shutdown witnesses testify, which they've been wanting to do for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
This group is led by Bob Salas. And they 30 years been trying to testify. Couldn't do it. However, for the first time ever, Robert Salas was able to speak directly with a member of Congress or be interviewed in Washington. And that was Nancy Mace, who had chaired the last two hearings. He met with her in the office, and she did say she wants those witnesses. So that is eminently possible. That's in the works. Then the House Oversight Committee, which was the home of the subcommittee that's held the last two hearings, good hearings. There's been others, briefing type hearings, but the two big ones, specifically set up a task force to go after and declassify federal secrets that should no longer be declassified. It's called the Task Force on Declassifying Federal Secrets.
Yes.
Pretty obvious. And they said we're going to go after the JFK, RFK, MLK records, possibly even the Epstein records, and of course UAP stuff. They've already started delivering on the JFK records.
Right.
They're coming out. There's more to come. Whatever is in there, the point is they're getting this done finally. And this is Anna Paulina Luna, who is the chairman of that task force. And so we have a full-blown process underway that is specifically targeting disclosure. More importantly, it is known now that people around the current president favor this being confirmed by the president for many reasons, not the least of which it will be an enormous legacy, and it will come with it substantial political capital. So without getting anything partisan, it's a pretty great move. And one of the leading people supporting this is his son, Donald Trump Jr., who is asking him about the issue, but has a podcast, a very substantial podcast. I think he has 1 million subscribers. Who doesn't have a podcast now, but he's got a big one, and he's good. He's a very good host. And just 3 days before his father was inaugurated, he brought on Louis Elizondo and Ross Coulthard for an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, to talk about disclosure and UFOs. There's just no way that his father was not aware of that.
Yeah.
Very likely encouraged it. And I believe what is happening there is his son is acting as kind of a test platform to garnish the public sentiment and reactions.
Interesting.
And I think he's getting nothing but positives. And so, frankly, there is nothing standing in the way of the president doing it himself without another major hearing, which I think would be appropriate. I think one more major hearing would be helpful. But what is precluding that is that there's quite a bit else going on. Very intense, controversial political issues in play right now. So I'm not anticipating the president unilaterally just coming out. Is he capable of it? Oh, yeah. But I mean, the current tariff issue is going to be around for a while, but at some point, the heat's going to come down. So I'm anticipating disclosure from the president soon. It could happen this month. It could happen next month. But the stage is set. All he has to do is walk out on there and say it. So I'm very optimistic. So disclosure-wise, we're almost there. And it is fully acknowledged by almost everyone in the Congress that has talked about it, that it is truly nonpartisan. They're treating it as a nonpartisan thing. And so if it takes place, it will not become a political football. It will, in fact, be something that both parties are going to be able to address to the benefit of the American people in a, I think, responsible, authentic, and nonpartisan way. And God knows we need as much of that as we can get. So we are on the cusp of something really huge. At the same time, we are on the cusp of major issues worldwide that have very destructive possibilities. We're in a very precarious place. And that's just the way it is, you know. That's what it is. And but I'm very pleased and impressed that the disclosure process has really been making relatively steady progress, regardless of what the political or foreign circumstances were.
Yeah. It's really interesting to juxtapose what's been going on the last few years to the entire history of this phenomenon. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. A lot of these ideas were largely thought to just be totally loony bin out there. If you saw something, you're crazy. All these shows that would come out, that was about the most that you'd get, on Discovery Channel or History or what
Right.
have you. But now, even thinking back to like Bill Clinton in the 90s, and someone asked him like, "Are we going to get UFO disclosure? What do you know?" And he was like, "I can't really say anything." Same with, the following presidencies. But yeah, that would be very interesting. What do you think is do you think there's like a single biggest roadblock that's just preventing all of this from coming out tomorrow?
No, there's nothing you can point at like that. The fundamental roadblock to why we didn't learn about disclosure 10 years ago, 20 years, learn about the ET presence 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. The fundamental roadblock is that the modern era of the engagement by what I like to sometimes call advanced, technologically advanced non-humans, which definitely describes them without saying they're extraterrestrial, because some people just don't like that, but I'm almost certain they're extraterrestrial, has been the nuclear arms race. And that's not an accident. After the bombs were dropped in Hiroshima, immediately we started seeing many sightings were taking place. It escalated and continued to escalate. We had a crash at Roswell, which obviously was a major event, meaning that the U.S. government knew about not only that the craft were real, they had one crash vehicle, but also that the pilots were real. They had them too. But again, they had a decision to make. 14 presidents since Roswell have had a decision to make, starting with Truman. And that was, should we let the people know about this? And I don't think when Truman had asked General Ramey to negate the press release that got out by people that were trying to tell the truth. I mean, they thought it was pretty cool, so they put out a press release, and they weren't punished for that press release about the Roswell crash.
Right.
But Truman had a decision to make, and so he asked Ramey to reverse it, which they did. But that doesn't mean he might not have decided to tell the truth on this. They might have not inappropriately wanted to think about it, examine, what this craft was like, get some information from that, what the ETs, what they could garner from the ET bodies, and there was, I believe, one alive at ET, and just and then make a decision. And so over the subsequent months, while they might have been making that decision, the obvious circumstance of a pending Cold War, a nuclear arms race, became increasingly evident with each passing month. It was obvious to more and more national security people that we had a new enemy. It was the communist Soviet Union. They had the nuclear secrets. They were going to test their own weapons. They were going to build missiles, and they were not our friend. And so facing that, they made the decision. Possibly that was the roadblock, meaning we can't tell the people until we see where this is going to go. Maybe in 5 years, we'll all be buddies, right? Hanging out together, having some vodka shots, whatever. But that's not what happened. The nuclear arms race got worse and worse every single month, every single year, until it became an existential threat to humanity. And so that has been the roadblock to getting the truth from any of those 14 presidents. And I have reached the conclusion that everyone knew. How much they knew may have dramatically varied, but did they know that there was advanced non-human technology and technologically advanced non-humans here? Yeah, every single one knew. You can't be the president and not be told that one way or the other, right? But they all made the same decision. Jimmy Carter tried to go a little further there, tried to do something that did not go anywhere. Clinton was pressed to do something by Lawrence Rockefeller, and he did service Rockefeller's interest, and a lot of things were going on, and some effort was made to maybe get some files. Didn't It was blocked ultimately, but it's notable, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. And I may get credit for bugging them about it for for decades. I mean, I started pressing the Clinton administration the and subsequent years after he left office relentlessly on the connection. I'm not the only one, but I've this stuff's still on my website. The documents confirming the involvement of the Clintons with the effort to get these files. These are the only two notable efforts by any presidents until now. Well, I say not yet. Right now, it's been the Congress, and that is important because one of the reasons that Clinton and or Carter could really not possibly succeeded is that this has got to go through the Congress first. You can't have a president unilaterally do this. It's too deep, too wide, too many oxes can be gored there. Too many subsidiary issues that are very complicated. It needs to go through Congress to set the president up. And that's exactly what has been happening since 2017. It took a while, but not long compared to the total history of this issue. And the Congress was, in fact, prepared. The legislation was passed, and organizations were created, particularly Arrow.
Right.
So
yes.
the platform's been built.
Yeah. Yeah. You've often, from what I understand, you've mentioned something that you call like a truth embargo. Is there like an entity within the government that's kind of controlling this this flow of information? You just mentioned Arrow, of course, and they're looking into things and presenting information as it gets researched and found out about. But is there do you think there's like another, maybe not like a clandestine group per se, but people who are, in the higher ups that are the ones that are controlling the flow of the information here?
Well, the truth embargo is still in place 78 years since Roswell. And using just sort of a common sense basic approach to it, because we don't know. And I prefer not to over speculate. You have to speculate some because the government's withholding so much. But the issue is extraordinarily classified. All of the programs, research, everything that they're doing governmentally with this issue is incredibly classified, up to the level of, well, two ways. The level of access is probably the highest there is. And then, of course, the nature of the programs go all the way to unacknowledged special access programs. And that's about as deep as you can get. In other words, you have to have special access and you can't even acknowledge it exists. So if somebody without that access, whoever, could be the Secretary of State, could be the Secretary of whatever, if they don't have the special access and they ask you about something along these lines, your answer, even if you're working on it 40 hours a week, is I don't know what you're talking about. And so it has been massively classified, operating behind the wall of secrecy. And in that totality of effort, which covers many agencies, multiple locations, including the armed services, atomic energy, whatever, there are people that are managing it. I don't think there's a czar. That would be too dangerous. It's not a czar. We heard about MJ-12, which I think was the original 12 group, people that were put together by Truman, and I think very, very likely they called it MJ-12. I think it's proven to my satisfaction, but of course it's never been acknowledged by government. But that was early. It was 12 people. They're smart. They got different credentials. They get together. They talk about it. But over the decades, the management of this issue has expanded, got increasingly complex, and it is that management that is essentially controlling it.
Yeah.
And by that I mean maybe a particular Secretary of Defense might have known something or even known it was real, or a CIA director or whatever. Uh, they didn't have the authority to come forward and say, "Oh, guess what? I know this. You need to." The only person outside of the managers of this issue who are operating behind those high classifications and access status is the president. That's the only one. Nobody else can supersede that. And so the managers are operating in a situation where they've got it made. They're going to be able to do their thing, and hopefully in service to the national security only, until and such time as the president decides it's time to bring that out. So if you want to say if there's a point of control, it is the president. And for many years, we thought that was because the president didn't know anything. I've come to realize, oh, they did, but not necessarily very much. But whatever they knew, every one of them, including this one, made the decision that the public can't know this yet. And that's how it's been. That is a very basic way of describing it without getting into exotic theories and speculations about hidden super groups and whatever. And it's fun. It's interesting. I understand it. I mean, the nature of the truth embargo literally spawns that kind of thinking, and that's okay. But I try to keep it basic. It makes it easier for me to work.
Yeah, I understand that for sure. For sure. There's a lot of different ways and ideas that come out from all of this, which, kind of brings me to my next question here, is that this phenomena seems to have been going on for quite a while. Humanity has been interacting with NHI, call it whatever you will, aliens, extraterrestrials, since at least Roswell, but seems like more likely even further back, potentially hundreds, maybe even thousands of years if you look into folklore, legends, religion. How do you think that the world coming into accepting that this is a reality, how do you think it's going to reshape our understanding of things like religion, our place in the universe? There's often
reshape everything.
Yeah.
It's going to impact everything one way or another. So it's the biggest paradigm shift in history. And I'm firmly convinced that extraterrestrials, they didn't just show up in 1947. I think they've been around for a long time. In fact, there's no reason or to take a very basic approach. As long as we've had a biosphere, and the galaxy is 13 billion years old. I think the Earth is like 3 billion, or rather roughly. I think our solar system is like, I don't know, X billion, and then our Earth is a little younger than that, but it's in that 3-4 billion range. So there was a universe 8 billion years prior to us, but it's eventually we developed. I say we, our solar system developed a life planet, and there are plenty of them out there, and there have been, and so. If you think of just our galaxy, which has a minimum of 200 billion star systems, if you think of as being filled with X number of quote planets that have developed biospheres, in other words, living zones, which could be million, 2 million, 500,000. It's a substantial number. If you think of that and imagine a biosphere like ours. Is there anything more interesting in the galaxy than that? Sun? Is the sun interesting? The sun is pretty cool. It's very important. We have a very good idea how the sun works. We had a pretty good idea how suns work 50 years ago. And so it's not a big deal anymore. We actually know. We know how they're formed. We know when they get born. We know when they die. So not that interesting. Black holes are pretty interesting, but it's a pretty narrow subject, right? You get a singular, enough mass together, and suddenly light can't get out. We've been studying, but how beyond that? What do you got? Nothing. The most complicated thing, the most interesting thing in our galaxy, as far as I can imagine, and I think anybody else can imagine, is life. And so, if you achieve a technological status where you can move star to star, what are you going to be most interested in? Life. And so if there's a biosphere, you're checking it out. And so I have to assume that non-human advanced technology, technologically advanced non-humans have been dropping in on our biosphere for the last 2 billion years. Think about that. All right. So, and they've come, they've gone, who knows? But the first evidence that we really have for this kind of engagement is in the anthropology and archaeology of our world, going back to the near extinction event of about 11,005 BC. Before that, not too much, but after that, a lot. And so I believe that there was substantial engagement, but it was of a wholly different type, because we were a very different civilization. So it's very possible that the extraterrestrials engaging our ancients were not the ones here now. But that doesn't matter. They still extraterrestrial, and they said they were from the stars frequently to our ancestors, who then related it to us, or indigenous peoples, whatever. But then after a period, and I haven't done the research, maybe Richard Dolan could comment on this, at some point that just stopped. Now, when? Was it 2,000 years ago? Was it 1,000 years ago? I don't know, but at some point, that kind of very substantial engagement, where they were highly present, doing whatever they wanted to do, and of course, always viewed as gods. And what else are you going to call them? It stopped, and then we had this long spell of which I don't think there was just much interaction for whatever reason. The best reason I can give is, as we became more civilized, a little more technologically advanced, which includes even the 14, 15, 1600s. We were always getting more tech, that at some point it was not, they couldn't interact with us the way they had done 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. So whatever, there's this long dry spell. That doesn't mean there wasn't some interaction. It just didn't seem, there's very little evidence for it. And then we really got our tech act together, cracked the atom, started looking into quantum mechanics, continued to be warring. I mean, that's what we're probably best at. We're the best at making war. I mean, we're incredibly good at it, and killing huge numbers of people. We dropped those bombs. We created and dropped the bombs in 45, and that flipped a switch. And so all of a sudden, a whole new level of engagement, not like thousands of years ago, much more subtle, complicated, has been taking place for the last 78 years. And it is tied to two things, I believe, three things, really. There's something they need very much from us. Two, we are clearly becoming a threat to ourselves and potentially a threat to others outside of our solar system. So, and in other words, becoming spacefaring, and really it's like just two things. No, it's two things: spacefaring, and therefore this engagement had to change. And so the fact that we're going to be spacefaring, the fact that we've built massive weapons, and the fact that they need something from us, these are the three reasons why suddenly there was a very substantial escalation of their involvement, which, because we're in a modern state, modern time, people were in a position to really study it, spread it, share it. And each decade that went by, the ability to try to understand what was going on by the citizens. The government knew a lot, but the citizens just kept getting better and better. And thus we have this asymmetry between what the public knows and what the government's willing to admit. And that asymmetry got worse and worse and worse until it became a major problem. And that there's only one way to resolve that problem, and the government has to yield. The president has to confirm the ET presence, and we eventually, in not too long a time, need to pretty much know everything the governments know. our government and the other governments. That would be what I call the post-disclosure world. The confirmation event, when the president says it, is disclosure, capital D. The lead up to it is the pre-disclosure world. And the policy of keeping this secret for 78 years, I came to call the truth embargo. So I developed some language, but I'm not good at writing. Even when I was sort of good at writing, I wasn't that good, and I'm very hard for me to concentrate. And so I've not written books. If I had written books, these kinds of terms would have been, I could have claimed them. I was like, that's mine. But my claim to these terms is basically through speaking endlessly. That's what I do. I like to speak, don't like to write.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was going to ask you, why do you think they're here? And we've got these reasons. Maybe they're trying to save us from ourselves because we're incredibly destructive as a species. We could wipe everything off the face of the earth in 45 minutes if we wanted to. But you mentioned this other thing that, they might need something from us. Do you have any ideas as to what that might be?
Yeah, the evidence for what they need comes from the contactee evidence, which is massive. Huge amounts of reports that have been submitted privately, mostly privately and anonymously, but then hundreds have been investigated and put into books. Might have been a few bogus counts in there, but overall, we have a very substantial understanding of contact. But it's not on the table. It's too much. In terms of disclosure, getting the confirmation, it's too much. The approach to get confirmation had to be narrowed to be workable, because we needed the legislative platform. So the contactees have had to nobly be patient while we get that done. But we have a great deal of, and I'm happy to talk about it. If I was like a former CIA guy that's trying to gauge this issue publicly now, I might be more reluctant. But even some of that is happening. Nevertheless, the contact, at the center of contact experience is genetic work. Genetics is one of the highest level science there is. It's right up there with quantum mechanics, but even more complicated in a way, because there's like one fundamental quantum theory, right, that we're trying to understand, and it's very complicated, but we're running it to ground. But when you get into genetics, there's a nearly infinite, probably, variety of life and genetics in the universe, and the principles vary. So that is really complicated, and it's important. I mean, if you're a living species, then genetics is very important. Exactly how life varies from planet to planet is one of the things I'm sure our biologists are dying to study. Who knows? But they are deeply engaged in our genetics here, and I believe that a lot of that has to do with they need to do that. They need to do that. They need to take blood from animals as part of this work. Don't know how they use that blood, but they certainly need it, because they take a lot of it from a lot of animals and they leave the animals behind.
Right. Cattle mutilations. Yeah.
Cattle mutilation is a poor term for it. I prefer to call it animal harvesting, but whatever. We need that. And of course, we know that they're doing genetic work with humans and creating hybrids. So that I'm saying primarily is something they need to do. The nuclear issue is also about them, because for two reasons. One, they may have within their moral compass a view that the destruction of life is by and large not good. It's inappropriate. It's not what advanced civilizations do. And the idea that we would seriously destroy a huge amount of our civilization and so forth, and the biosphere too. I mean, the nuclear war is going to raise hell with the biosphere. They view that as unacceptable, inappropriate, and so that's kind of a thing. That's one of their things. That's their view, as opposed to not caring at all. But there's also the other aspect of the nuclear thing is that it could affect them. Now, how could it affect them?
Yeah.
Two ways. If, as many researchers believe, and I do as well, that for them to be as present as they are, they've got to have bases here, unless they're operating from bases outside of the planet, other side of the moon, whatever, or motherships. They've got to have bases here. And the evidence points to that. They've got bases here. Not easy to find, not easy to get to. But if they have bases here and we have a massive nuclear war, that's going to be awkward. It's a little not helpful. Could affect that. But it certainly is going to raise hell with us. But it could affect them. But the other way, and the most important issue, maybe of all, is that we are a technologically advanced civilization. And our technological trend curve has been turning further up, more vertical, since 1900. It's now moving so fast, we can't keep up with it. It's now moving so fast that we daily are concerned that this or that particular trend is going to be enormously dangerous to us. Can't stop it. So we're rocking, whoop, home straight up. You know, one of the technological breakthroughs that's ahead of us is how to get from star to star, like they do. And we may be very close to that. And if we are, that something very simple follows that I don't think any reasonable person could possibly argue against. If we can go star to star, like Captain Kirk, where no man has gone before, we're not going unarmed. We're taking our best weapons with us. And so the moment we can do that, the moment we can leave this solar system and make it to another star in a reasonable amount of time, loaded down with nukes and God knows what else we can have, we are now a threat to everybody we might just encounter. And that's a problem for them, I assure you. And so that's the short list that I operate from as to why we're seeing all this activity, why they are not really standing in the way of a disclosure process, why they do what they do. And I'm happy with that. Until I learn something better, a better explanation, that's where I'm at. And I hope that's the case, because if it's true, then it bodes well ultimately for us, assuming we don't have that nuclear war before this all gets brought in the open. I think in a post-disclosure, possibly even post-open contact time, which could be soon, that may be what is necessary for us to finally get our act together and go, okay, we can't do this anymore. This is absurd. Not only can we not have nukes, but we really need to get rid of the tanks, the drones, and all that stuff, and stop spending trillions of dollars every year protecting ourselves from each other.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's one thing that humans are good at, it's making war, for sure.
Mm.
Now, you mentioned that previously, a extraterrestrial species that could have come here thousands and thousands of years ago might be different from the ones who are showing up now, which are, I think, largely thought to be like the gray aliens, the Zeta Reticulans, whatever they are. Do you believe that there are other species out there interacting with us? Just how many could there be?
I don't know. Is there roughly 5 or 6 that, 6, 7, roughly in that zone? Some of them are, a little different, but not too different. And this is from the contactee reports where they describe them, they draw them, they paint them, things like that. So we have enough idea. Does that mean there aren't more that are more clandestine, that are not involved in contactee work at all? So no one's really got a handle on it? I don't know. But 5 or 6 is more than enough for me. But one of the things I frequently discuss is it's a little mind experiment, I guess, or just a simple analysis that seems comfortable. Is that it's a perfectly legitimate question. Whatever group are dealing with this now, why that group as opposed to others? Right? It may be just purely accidental. It could be random. It could be based on the fact that they're close and because they're close, more likely, that's not unreasonable. But there's something else that I'd like to point out, which always has intrigued me, is that when you look and consider what contactees are reporting about the predominant group that seems to be engaging us, there's something that it's hard to overlook it. And that's this. We'll start at the top. The substantial reports of reptilian type beings. Right? Doesn't scare me, but reptiles are sort of famous for being a little scary. Nevertheless, the reason they're being called reptilian is because they look reptilian. Okay. Why do they look reptilian? Well, we know what reptiles look like. And so I'm going to suggest that the reason they look reptilian is they've got reptilian DNA. From where? From here. So if the ETs are deeply involved in genetic work, which to me is the ultimate, most complex science, and they've been involved in it for, pick a number, 100 years, 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years, whatever, then the idea that reptilian DNA could have been sampled from this planet and then used in genetic work elsewhere to create what amounts to a sentient entity with intellectual power that has substantial reptilian DNA. No problem. And then there's the insectoids. There's several names for them, but they're called that because they looked insect-like. I would suggest the reason they do is because they've got insect DNA. From where? From here. When? Who knows? Doesn't matter. Could have been 1,000 years ago, could have been 1,000,000 years ago. Doesn't matter. They got insect DNA. And that was used to create, ultimately, entities of great intellectual power who look insect-like. Okay, no problem. And then you've got, then you've got the what they call the Nordics or whatever they want to call them, right? They're Pleiadians, the Nordics, whatever. The thing they have in common is they look very, very human. Very, very human. Some feel that they're indistinguishable, at least from the outside. Well, gee, that's not hard. How could they possibly look human if they really they have human DNA? And where would that human DNA have come from? Would it come from here, of course? Taken when? Who the hell knows? In the past thousands of years, they could have sampled human DNA, but they could have also taken thousands of Homo sapiens sapiens right off the planet, taking them off for I don't know, an advanced education. Who would know? Who
Right.
would care? Who could record it? Nothing. So they had carte blanche until not that long ago. So that's notable. And then you get to the Greys, and they don't look too human, really. There's not much there. The one thing they have in common is the things they have in common, rather, are 2 eyes, 2 arms, and 2 legs, and 1 head.
Right.
And we go, oh, well, that's very human. Not necessarily. Because on the basis of physics, the one thing I think all living entities in this galaxy have in common, one of the things they absolutely have in common, is they developed in gravitational bodies. In other words, they developed on bodies of mass that had gravitation. And therefore, that whole evolution occurs within that gravitational field. I don't see life evolving just completely on its own out in the middle of nowhere in space. No way. And so when you look at the nature of gravity and you look at the nature of evolution just on our planet, it's not hard, and I think this has been written about extensively, that ultimately the most efficient, basic structure that a living being could have, that has minimum amount of unnecessary parts and can be of a reasonable size and be mobile and all of that stuff, and have a brain, is 1 head, 2 arms, 2 legs, okay? 2 eyes for stereoscopic. You only need 1 mouth. You only need 1 nose. You need 2 ears for, again, audioscopic. And so I think that the human form would be common throughout the galaxy.
Interesting.
Because in order to get to our level of intelligence, it takes a couple billion years of evolution. I mean, a huge long time. And so that endless process has plenty of time to create that basic entity. You don't, to be us, you don't need four legs, you just need two. There are plenty of animals with four legs, but they're not us. And one of the reasons that we're around is because we're very smart. And so horses aren't. And so we're the dominant species and they aren't. There is no dominant species with four legs, even remotely close. In the water, on the other hand, two arms and two legs, that doesn't work, right? But it's so amongst the water animals of high intellect, I believe it's pretty much a tail and two flukes, or two, whatever you want to call it. And I think it varies. So if you're talking porpoises or orcas, dolphins, they are essentially what I consider the fundamental basic structure for a very advanced, intelligent ocean creature. Right? One head, one brain, two flukes, and instead of two legs, one tail. Though maybe now I think they're all one tail, basic, fundamental. And so my guess is if you were to examine the oceans and 100 other water planets out there, you'd probably find the most sophisticated animal as smart as our dolphins, and they are smart, believe me. If they had fingers, but they don't. And because they don't, there's only so much they can do. And of course, the environment they're in, but they are the smartest animals of the ocean. We're the smartest animals on land. And again, you could see that commonality. Now, this comes under the area of exobiology, which is taught. There is some of that in schools, but not much because, well, it's taboo subject. But the colleges are finally about to get on board after 70 years of taking the knee to the truth embargo. Really a disgrace, to be honest with you. That's cool stuff. So that the exobiology departments of these universities is going to get really big deal. But I bring it up not because I'm an expert in exobiology, because when you look at this issue long enough, just as a disclosure advocate, yeah, you start to see certain things. I mean, certain ideas emerge from that. And so what I'm suggesting, is that when you look at the entities that are here, the grays, I forgot the grays. They don't look like humans. However, they very much seem to be predominantly involved in the genetic work. And so there's the genetic connection. All right. And so what I'm suggesting is that the group that is here, as opposed to any and other all possibilities, are the ones that actually have a genetic connection to us. I mean, in other words, they're part of us. We're kind of related, right?
Yeah.
And the reason that they're here now and so prominent is because we are going through the disclosure process. We are finally getting to the point, not from 5,000 years ago, where we're worshiping some extraterrestrial god, but rather we are getting to the point where, as a advanced technological spacefaring civilization, we're going to acknowledge we're not the only advanced spacefaring civilization, which is the disclosure event, and they are here to be part of it, to be present for it. In other words, if we need to be engaged because of the nuclear weapons development, the potential for star-to-star travel, and we're going to be engaged by some entities because it's time for them to engage us on that, because we got to sort some things out here, because we're not going to allow you to head on out with your crazy weapons. It's not surprising that the ones that choose to do that are the ones that have this already connection to us. I like this. I like that story. I feel comfortable with it. Is it true? I don't know. But I put it out there because it has a fundamental common sense backing to it. And that's where I try to live. I just have no interest in the ultra exotic, really cool sci-fi speculations, which has helped make Hollywood billions of bucks. I get that. But it's not good for the disclosure process.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You'd really need to, with how skeptical people are about anything, you really need to have them be involved and present on TV for people to even believe it. But I'm wondering, just as for the future, what kind of responsibilities do we have for future generations when it comes to, the truth about aliens, non-human intelligences interacting with Earth? Is this going to become like, Exobiology 101 when you get into high school? Like, what do we do with that?
Sure. Yeah, well, you said responsibility. Again, the disclosure will be the biggest event in human history, the greatest paradigm shift in history, the greatest news story in history. Everything will change afterwards, and it will be very difficult to keep up with it. It would be an incredible opportunity for people to make a lot of money. I assure you, a lot of money will be made for those that understand how to engage this issue in any number of ways. No disrespect intended at all. It will be inspiring. It will alter every area of thinking, and hopefully change our worldview so that we can actually develop an earth protecting, non-warring civilization that it understands that it's not in our best interest to have 100 billion people here, right? So that's good, but that's going to take time. In terms of responsibility, that's interesting because the greatest generation that I think it was Brokaw, one of those high-end journalists that did a doc or something, and I think it was Brokaw, but it could have been Jennings. I don't know. Anyway, they coined this term. They coined the term the greatest generation. This is a long time ago. It's been a long time. And again, we're into this generation naming, and I get it's very confusing, and it's getting more confusing all the time. But the greatest generation was the generation, essentially, that won World War II. Okay, and to some degree World War I, but certainly World War II. They fought it, managed it, and so forth. And so if you were a 20-year-old guy fighting in World War II in Europe or in the Pacific, then you were born around 1926. You were born 1920, like the beginning of the war, 1920, 21. Greatest generation. Carried on through beyond the war for a while, and then essentially was gone. The next generation is probably one of the easiest to define of all the generations that we talk about, and that is the baby boomers. And that's easy. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of men, maybe millions really, to some degree, one way or another, essentially were able to put down their weapons and head home. And when they got home, they started making babies. This is hardly surprising. And so they launched a population wave that we came to call the baby boomers, and I am one of them. I am absolutely a pure baby boomer. All right. I am in that generation as deep as you can get. All right. My father was in the Pacific. He was mustered out. He got back to California, was immediately sent to Bethesda, and immediately met my mother and immediately got the business, right? And so I was conceived about 6.5 months after Roswell. I was born about 6.5 months after the bombs were dropped in Hiroshima. And I was born 6.5 months before Roswell. But whatever, baby boomer. Now, it was the baby boomers that ended up essentially developing, managing the nuclear arms race and the rise of the vast intelligence systems. In other words, we're the ones that created those and maintained them for decades and decades and decades. So the baby boomers are probably the most responsible. But again, it was the greatest generation that again built a bomb, right? No question. And the scientists, kind of that generation, pretty much, are the ones that came to understand nuclear physics and led to it. And then we built it. So they have a responsibility, but because if they don't build it at all, I guess, but They did that. I don't. Their responsibility, I think, is not the same as the baby boomer generation because and by the way, when I say baby boomer, I'm not just talking about the United States. I'm talking about the guys that went home, made a bunch of babies in China, a bunch of babies in Russia, a bunch of babies in the UK. Pick a country. Babies were coming up all over the place. They are the ones that developed, managed, maintained the Cold War and the nuclear arms race that put us to the brink. All right. So it is not only, it's totally fair and appropriate that many of the leading figures in the work that has helped to get us to where we are today, disclosure, were baby boomers. Stanton Friedman, baby boomer. Lyndon Moulton Howe, baby boomer. Richard Dolan, not quite. He's, I think, the next generation. What was it, Gen X?
Gen
Can't
X,
remember.
yeah.
And I can go down the line. Plus, there were a few greatest generation, though, that were involved. Like Keogh was a greatest generation guy, but he was on it right away. So he was on it right in the late 40s, early 50s, trying to make the obvious point that these are UFOs, these are extraterrestrial. But overall, then the baby boomers took over, and they have carried the weight. Now the Gen Xers got on board pretty well. Then the next generation was hard for them to get on board because this truth embargo was so deeply entrenched. All of this would be part of a documentary called Truth Embargo, which I've wanted to make for a long time. Took a couple of runs at it. No way. But if anybody comes to me from Hollywood and says, we want to make a doc called Truth Embargo. We got a $10 million budget. Will you help? I'm there, baby. Right? I'm in. What do you want? I'll do anything. I'll direct. I'll advise. I'll consult. I'll whatever. Because that documentary's got to be made, and it'll be big. It won't be some 2-hour deal. It'll be the Ken Burns Civil War documentaries on this subject. So we have we have the major responsibility. So it's not inappropriate that we try to fix it. Right. So any of the baby boomers out there, you know who we are. I've got many colleagues like that. I don't know if you've thought about it that way, but in a way, I feel an obligation as baby boomers, like, let's fix this, because my generation is what really created this dilemma. Not only in terms of the secrecy, but in terms of the nuclear arms race, which was key to maintaining the secrecies. It all comes together. So what can I say? That's one way to look at the responsibility. I'm not really trying to cast shade. I mean, let's face it. You're born into whatever generation, you do what you can do, and then later you look back and assign, blame and shit. But overall, it's just an interpretation of how to look at it that I find comfortable with.
Yeah, no, for sure. In the post-disclosure world, I mean, where do you see humanity heading? Like 10, 15, 50 years post the announcement? Are we going to be developing interstellar travel with the aid of these other beings out there and colonizing the galaxy? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, let's keep it near term. All right. In the first 20 years after disclosure, here's what we have to do. I'm not saying we will, but this is what we have to do. One, starting from day one, starting from disclosure day, which could be soon, which will immediately be World Disclosure Day. I actually proclaimed a World Disclosure Day years ago. I think it was July the 8th. But once it happens, I will immediately change the date on that site to whatever the hell day it gets announced. One, we have to educate ourselves about everything we can learn about what our government knows about this phenomena, going back as far as we can go. Learn it, study it, teach it. Everybody can't do that, but as a civilization, we got to get totally up to speed. And we have the tools to do that. We have the ability to educate ourselves at an incredibly rapid pace. So that's okay. We got to do that. Two, we will be in open contact, I think, early on. And so we're going to have to conduct that. We're going to have to be in open contact with ETs and discuss whatever the hell they want to discuss. We're going to do that. Three, what needs to come out of that is we have to get rid of the nuclear weapons. That's got to happen. And if we can get rid of the nuclear weapons, then the next step is we've got to disarm. And what I mean by that is that we simply make the decision as a civilization that we have already partitioned partitioned the world. In other words, essentially every square foot of land on this planet, by and large, there's some interesting areas where it's kind of it is hanging, but is part of is 200 countries and sovereign territory, right? There's boundaries for every single one, and we just have to decide that's it. We're not going to go to war over those boundaries. We're going to spend the untold trillions that we spend defending ourselves against everybody else in their boundaries or within their area, and put that money towards actually developing a viable civilization. So we get rid of the tanks. We get rid of pretty much all the other major weapons. But certainly every country will have a certain amount of hardware to deal with the odd problem. But it's going to be agreed that we're going to take away the ability to commit suicide. We'll remove all the sharp objects in the room, any deadly poisons, the matches, whatever, right? So that at this point, that is not an issue. Now, that is going to save us untold trillions of dollars. I recently did a cursory analysis on world spending on war, defense, military since World War II. It's not easy. It's a kind of a very difficult number to come up with, but several institutes of substance have made a run at this. And based upon the work of one institute, which made an intelligent case for the war spending since '88, adjusted for inflation, which is totally appropriate. Because, well, yeah, the number's bigger, but because it's adjusted. But remember, stuff was cheaper back when that money was being spent. And so the final number, you can legitimately say how big a number in terms of doing stuff is that, and it's a legitimate comparison. So they came up with, adjusted for inflation, $1 trillion has been spent worldwide since '88. Then I have tried to go back, and that's essentially 37 years. Then I have tried to get a sense of, okay, well, then how much adjusted for inflation was spent between 45 and 88, which is 43 years. I think it's an even bigger number because of so many proxy wars that took place, all the wars that took place before '88, though there's been plenty since, and the huge ramp up of the arms race, which culminated, just as one simple figure, with an estimated 86,000 nukes by 1986, right? 86,000 nuclear warheads. So I'm coming up with a number that I like, but I need to do more work. That just which I have placed at $150 trillion. Okay, now so what? Well, here's the what. Without getting into all the reasons why we did what we did. Common sense says, if after World War II, we had decided we ain't going to do no war no more, we cannot continue down this way, and we had simply done detente worldwide, and we created the UN, and the UN was made very robust, and we just committed ourselves, and by and large, we're able to get to where I just talked about. At that point, again, this is almost like fables, but I'm just trying to make a point. We would have had $150 trillion to spend on other stuff, not war, not military, not defense, $150 trillion since 1945. That's a lot of money that would have gone toward what? Gone toward scientific development in food production, water purification, building homes and houses, plumbing systems, providing the fundamental needs of the human race, as well as huge amounts of money to examine and research how we're impacting the environment to minimize the ruination of our biosphere. 150 trillion bucks. I didn't have it. But it gets worse because there's a second number. And by the way, I would posit that these two numbers, if you look at every problem we have now, whether large or small, if we look at every problem we have, undergirding it all, underneath, are these two numbers. I just gave you the first one. $150 trillion spent on nothing but war, military, defense, bases, whatever the hell. Okay. The other number is, at the end of World War II, the population of the planet was 2.3 billion people. Just 2.3 billion people. Since then, it's increased to 8.3 billion people. So while we're spending $150 trillion and all of that crap, we added 8 billion more people that needed toilets and homes and houses and food and clothing and clean water. But it's worse than that because that's not the fair number. The actual number is how many people were born into this world since 45. We had 2.3 billion. How many people have been born into the world that needed those things since then? And when you put that number, it comes out to 12 billion. 4 more billion, 12 billion, 12 billion people.
Yeah.
And guess what? Because we spent that 150 trillion, we have always had masses, amounts of human suffering, displacement. And of course, war abuses people, destroys, and this and that. And so we spent a lot of that 150 trillion on bombing and blowing stuff up while the population grew. And so you create larger and larger numbers of very unhappy, angry, displaced people. And when you put that together, you get just about every problem that we have today, including the degradation of our environment, right? So what can I say? Those two numbers have now put us at the point where we are approaching complete breakdown of human civilization, with or without a nuclear war. Because the nature of our world now, because of, again, we spent 150 trillion on that crap, is that a lot of other money could have been spent on addressing other things. And because that wasn't spent, you've got 8.3 billion people that is like headed for not only massive weather destruction because of ecosphere, but also disease like you can't imagine, right? We've had our plagues. We know about them. Believe me, there's bigger ones coming, much bigger ones coming, worse, multiple, same time. It's going to emerge literally out of the crap that we've created. Okay, so we got that. So we don't need a nuclear war. And plagues of great size could literally destroy civilization. They could destroy economies. And again, they can't kill off enough people to solve that problem, but they will certainly make enough people miserable that like they won't be safe anywhere. So the destruction of civilization can happen even without the nuclear war. But you throw a nuclear war in, then it's ballgame. We're there. We worked hard to get there. I happen to believe that because we are there is one of the most key reasons why the ET engagement escalated in 1946. So they're all kind of tied together. And that's important because the ET presence is not trivial. It's not some clever trick we come out, oh, that'll solve this, that'll solve that, or whatever. No, the ET presence is massive. It is a huge lever, like Archimedes said, big enough to move the world. And so it's all tied together in that sense.
Yeah.
So this is the way I think of it as we try to think of what's going to happen. It's that first 20 years. We've got to get all of that done in 20 years. Unless the ETs take over, they could do that. They could basically take over. We're running things now, and we're getting rid of all the weapons. And if you don't like it, well, we can deal with that. We're going to do whatever happens to how would you say, not rebirth, but engage your environment and bring it back to life, whatever. And if you don't like that, too bad, right? Just take over and they'll manage us out of this. That could happen. It would be very disruptive, but ultimately it might work. I don't think that's going to happen. I give that a very low probability, but it's one way it could go. In which case, we don't really have a responsibility. They're going to do it for us. We got maybe 20 years, maybe not even that, to get those done. That has to happen. Whatever else happens post-disclosure, those things have to happen. And if they do, I won't live to see it, but there's a whole lot of Gen Zs, millennials, that may in their middle age be living on a planet that we could not even imagine now, or imagine 10, 15, 20 years ago, with a happy ending. And why do I think that is possible? Because every ET species that's been showing up here, advanced tech, star-to-star travel, pretty much must be the result of a happy ending. So if they can have a happy ending, so can we.
Yeah. Yeah. Now the question is, Steve, do you think we're ready? Do you think we're ready for this? Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether you're ready or not. Were we ready for, the birth of atomic physics, quantum mechanics, which is mind bending, right?
Fair point.
Were we ready for the iPhone, the internet? No, that's, you can't think that way, right? But that kind of thinking the government encourages, right? Oh, you're not ready. You're not ready. You're not ready. So that's why we're just going to do our thing over here because you're not ready. No, doesn't matter. The truth and moving into the future is our right as sentient beings on this planet, and no other sentient being has the right to take that away from us on the basis of we're not ready. That is absolute BS, right? You may say, well, look, you weren't ready for the atomic bomb, all right? So we shouldn't have built it. Well, that's kind of true, because once we built it, then we made tens of thousands more. And so you could say we're not ready for the atomic bomb, but who's to stop that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody had raised their hand, I mean, and they did. There were several letters that were sent. Some were received. Some were to Truman. Don't drop the bomb. Don't drop it on Hiroshima. Don't drop it. Don't drop the bomb on people. Drop it off coast. Whatever the hell. Don't do it. They're going to surrender. And he did it anyway. Okay. And the argument could have been, President Truman, the human race is not ready for an atomic bomb, certainly, and so we can't use it. But you see, it doesn't matter because the atomic bomb was the product of atomic physics. And that's the world. That's the real world. And once you understand the real world, you understand it. You're going to use it. You're going to work with it. And so the idea is stop all the atomic physics, not going to study it anymore, right? Because we're not ready for where it'll lead us. No. The human race has never done that. It will never do that. We are in this world to understand this world, and stopping it because, well, something we understand we're not, quote, ready for. No, it's never going to work. They gave it a run, right? They said we weren't ready to know about the ETs while they went and built 80,000 nuclear weapons, and we weren't ready for that either. Okay? And so I'm saying, look, just tell us everything. Because the more we know, the more we can make a better decision about whether we want to take advantage of or act upon what you say we're not ready for, right? In other words, if we're going to make a decision about engaging the ETs, or rather how we're going to engage the ETs, it needs to come from all of us, not from a select few working behind classification status, making $150,000 a year, right? And who are ready, apparently, and do have a need to know. We don't. That is a fundamental breach of the social contract. It's not the only breach. Our social contract has been breached so much, I'm imagining you can even read the damn thing. But that's my philosophy. Others would disagree.
Well, I mean, yeah. It's got to happen. It's got to happen. Disclosure, feet to the fire, we're ready or not. But yeah. Now, this has been a really great conversation today, Steve. Really appreciate having you on. Just, checking timing in here. And we're well past the top of the hour. I could listen to you go on for the whole day, really.
Yeah, it's very kind of you, but I do tend to go on all day. Again, I like to speak. I don't like to write. So I try to overcompensate. But look, again, this is a message that has to get out. You're a part of my podcast army and keep doing your thing. The podcasters, however small, have
Yes.
actually been making a major contribution to this issue in ways I don't think they even fully understand yet. But it's a podcast world now,
Yeah.
and we just live in it. But the podcasters like yourself have been key to ensuring the disclosure process is utterly irreversible. And I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, thanks for coming on and thanks for those kind words. And before we wrap up and sign off, can you let my listeners know where they can find all your work online?
Well, yeah, and some promos here. Let me do some promos.
Yes, exactly.
Paradigm Research Group is now a 501c3. I'm trying to raise about 25,000 so I can launch a major new conference in DC, and we'll do other things as well because I've been operating as a sole proprietor, but now I'm a 501c3. Things are happening and I want to get going. So if somebody out there wants to drop about 25K on me, I'm going to rock and roll. That's paradigmresearchgroup.org. But there's other major organizations that have come together to pretty much get us home and post-disclosure world, and that's the newparadigminstitute.org, also a 501c3.org, newparadigminstitute.org. Soul Foundation, also a 501c3 nonprofit, thesoulfoundation.org. UAP Disclosure Fund, a political 501c4. They're looking for money and donations. Support them. I'm also involved in the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance.org, which is also a 501c3 that's trying to prepare us for the post-disclosure world and get us there. And then Contact in the Desert is coming up. It's one of the major conferences. I am very much involved in it. It's May 29 to June 2. It's in Indian Wells at the Esmeralda Spa Resort. Pretty nice. And contactinthedesert.com. The hotel is booked, but there are many other hotels nearby, much cheaper, I must say. So this could be a major conference, particularly if we get disclosure. So I hope people consider coming to Contact in the Desert in California, May 29 to June 2. And let's see, is there any promo? Well, there's other conferences coming up, and I need to update my promo list on my website, but I do put out promos all the time on my update list. So if you go to paradigmresearchgroup.org and look up in the upper left corner, you can subscribe right there easily to my update list, and you'll get information about a lot of upcoming stuff. And that's my promos for today.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Steve, for coming on the show today, and we'll have to have you on again at some point. This was great.
Anytime, sir.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks again to Stephen Bassett for coming on to the show today. The gears of disclosure definitely seem to be turning faster and faster towards some kind of big reveal that we're not alone in this universe. Now, we certainly live in interesting times, and this kind of thing happening, going on, really isn't something that I thought we'd see in our lifetimes, at least, but it seems like something's about to happen. But let's wait and see what that is going to be. The Paradigm Research Group and all of Steve's links will be in the show notes as always if you want to learn more. But anyway, thank you so much for listening and hanging out with me today. Again, my name's Jeff, and this is the Strangeology Podcast. As always, I want to give a huge thank you out there to everyone who checks out this show, downloads it, shares it with friends and family. It really helps me out a ton when you do. The more sharing, the further reach that I get. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribing to my channel, liking, commenting, and sharing it out to the world helps me out as well. It boosts my episodes to more people, and it helps keep this thing growing. Strangeology really wouldn't be possible without the support of listeners and followers like you. To any advertisers or companies out there looking to collaborate with the Strangeology podcast, or if you'd like to be considered for an interview on the show, if you're an author, researcher, expert, cryptid Fortean enthusiast, or if you have experienced something and want to be considered to have your story be told on the podcast with the paranormal, the strange, the unexplained, UFOs, aliens, that kind of thing, you can head on over to strangeology.com/contact, or you can send an email directly to info@strangeology.com. And just another reminder to give me a follow over on all of my social media accounts. If you're looking for more content from me in between episodes, we're active pretty much most days on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And you can also find Strangeology on X, Threads, Blue Sky, and Substack now as well. And make sure to go to Strangeology.com and sign up for our monthly newsletter. And occasionally I throw out discount codes for my shop. So if you're wanting to stay in the loop, that's a great way to do it. Now, Strangeology can use all the help it can get. So if you want to support this show and you love what I do, you can sign up to become a channel member on my YouTube channel for just under $5 a month, which gets you access to bonus segments of the podcast episodes and early and ad-free access to new podcast episodes along with my longer format videos. I'm working on expanding the back catalog of Strangeology Beyond episodes there. Slowly but surely, it does take a lot of time to export these along with my current production schedule. So stay tuned and keep checking back. There's going to be more stuff there soon. And you can also support me by signing up to my Patreon, which is at patreon.com/Strangeology. And it's very similar to becoming a YouTube channel member. Membership grants you access to Strangeology Beyond, episode extensions, which are sometimes entirely new research topics or extended guest interviews. They're also early access and ad-free, but Patreon has more available, like exclusive merch for members, voting power on topics, and a whole lot more. So definitely check that out if you want to join a growing community of like-minded people who love the strange and unexplained. It's a great place to be. And for everyone out there, I appreciate the support so much. And really, the more of it I get, the more content that I can crank out for everyone out there. And to those members out there, you know who you are. Thank you so much. I love you all and really appreciate your continued support. It helps keep the lights on here at Strangeology HQ. So again, that's patreon.com/Strangeology. Also, if you would like to support Strangeology in a different way, you can go pick up some merch. I've got a ton of it over on my shop at strangeology.etsy.com. If you're looking to pick up some Fortean style shirts, cryptid stuff, alien stuff, conspiracy stuff, I've got t-shirts, tank tops with warmer weather coming, but there's also long sleeves, sweatshirts, and hoodies. I also have stickers, magnets, prints, blankets. I've got my Homestate Cryptids collection, my Homestate Cryptids and Legends map. I'm always adding new stuff. I do my own artwork, and I just added some new designs, and I have more that I'm trying to find time to get listed. So you always want to check back and see what's going on. I have a really fun Giants design that I am going to be posting very soon. So stoked on that one. Anyway, if you'd like to support me that way, I appreciate the support so much. Again, that's strangeology.etsy.com. The links will be in the show notes. All right, that's all from me for now. This was real fun today, but until the next time, make sure to take care of yourselves and each other and keep it strange.